Hello and welcome to the Economic Times and Harappa Transformation Series brought to you by ITes. In today's disruptive digital era, businesses are driven by data, but it's ultimately the human touch that powers economic growth. And in that spirit, the Economic Times and Harappa conducted a 4-part webinar series that spanned India's most economically advantaged sectors: IT and IT-enabled services, BFSI, manufacturing, and services, to take a closer look at how cognitive, social, and behavioral skills are now taking center stage across industries. The pandemic demands that today's workforce think critically, communicate effectively, listen patiently, and act independently. Therefore, social, cognitive, and behavioral skills have now become even more critical and closely tied to employee and enterprise success. For this special episode, we have with us a seasoned expert who spearheaded all 4 panel discussions and a pioneer in Indian education himself, Dr. Pramath Raj Sinha. Pramath, thank you so much for joining us. Now, across these webinars, you repeatedly use the term Thrive Skills, which is coined by Harappa. But help us better understand what these skills encapsulate and why they've become so critical that they be deeply ingrained in today's work culture.
I would say that I have found that there's always a lot of emphasis that people give to professional qualifications, technical qualifications, functional qualifications. But the truth is that those only matter to some extent in making your career a success. In fact, today, things are changing so fast at the workplace that there is no real education that can prepare you. You have to learn things anew, afresh each time. But what really makes you successful, despite different roles and careers that you have in your life, are these skills that we at Harappa call Thrive Skills. And these Thrive Skills are nothing but a set of cognitive, social, and behavioral skills, which essentially means the skills of how you think, how you problem solve, how you decide, how you exercise judgment, how do you get things done. Social skills, which are about communication, collaboration, teamwork, and behavioral skills, which are about how do you manage your own emotions, your own self, how do you deal with setbacks and failures, how do you become an excellent worker who practices excellence all the time. These are the skills that actually people at the workplace value a lot. And these are the skills that allow you to deal with the disruptions that happen at the workplace because technology suddenly changes and your business suddenly changes. So we believe that Thrive Skills, these sets of skills that are around cognitive, social, and behavioral skills, are foundational. They are core. They don't change. And these are the skills that you most need in an environment that is constantly changing.
Well, let's do a deeper dive there. Why have cognitive skills in particular suddenly become such a crucial component of becoming a consummate and complete IT professional?
So especially in the information technology space and the IT-enabled services space, as we all know, there's been a lot of automation that has happened with the availability of large amounts of data that needs to be analyzed, and that's all analyzed through algorithms and through the whole field of data science that is essentially automated. There's a lot of work, therefore, that the IT professional has to do with very advanced computers and computing systems that are already doing a lot of the work that they used to do before. So they have to add value to what the computers are doing. And that becomes a mental and cognitive challenge. It's like the low-end work is all getting done by other folks. So you have to do more complex, more intelligent, and work that requires greater amount of judgment and decision making. And that's where cognitive skills, how you think, how you reason, how you problem solve, becomes very important. It's also true that you are constantly now working at the intersection of the human and the machine. And that requires a whole different set of skills. And how do you collaborate with a machine? And it requires a slightly different set of skills. You have to work remotely. As an IT professional, there's so much to keep up with constantly, that you have to have a certain resilience and a certain uh, uh, cognitive agility to move from one thing to the other thing to the other thing and keep learning and improving yourself throughout your career.
Thank you, Pramath, for sharing those insights. And with that, we now present you highlights of our industry webinar with stalwarts from the IT space.
It just says everything that could go online has moved online. Now, with all of us working in an online environment, irrespective of the city, country, culture, religion aspect of it, the only thing which connects two individuals is that trust. And how do we develop that trust? How do we work together on that trust is becoming a big shift. We are identifying new talent pools because location is no more in the equation of identifying the talent. The whole ITes industry, which had location as one of the important parameters, is not there. So new talent pools are coming up. And the last one on the skills and capabilities is the merging of roles. So many of those career frameworks, which were developed based on a role definitions, job description, and competency models, are being questioned. Are they really relevant? It's about we have to work towards a purpose and we are connected through technology. So that's the new organization structures and models which are emerging.
The trends are changing, the expectations are changing. Earlier, the importance of technical knowledge was probably 90%, and 10% was given on communication. These are the only two things that we used to look at when we go and hire from campuses. But now that's not the case. Now it's the question of not just the technical skills, but also how you adapt yourself, how do you show your resilience, how you're actually able to connect with people, how are you able to connect with the trends. All these are being assessed when we are hiring the current set of talent. And the biggest challenge that I see as an organization is that you hire these talents, but after that, how do you make sure that you sustain them? So the combination of the business skills and the technology skills, from the 90-10, it's probably gone to 50-50 now.
We went back and looked at our people philosophy at Dell. We had a very simple A, B, C, D. It stood for achievement, balance, connection, and diversity, right? The achievement was always there, was very key, in terms of a number-driven organization. We also realize, as we get younger generations into our workforce, we need to have a balance because it's one life. You want to make sure you work in that life as well as balance your interests and hobbies too. But then when COVID hit us, we realized connection became so critical, right? And that's not a skill you can really teach somebody overnight. But it became critical for leaders to have a connection with this virtual environment, and obviously then diversity and inclusion, etc.
It's time for a short break, but our special feature, The Economic Times and Harappa Transformation Series, brought to you by ITes, continues on the other side. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching The Economic Times and Harappa Transformation Series, brought to you by ITes. And we're in conversation with Dr. Pramath Raj Sinha, who's sharing his take on cognitive, social, and behavioral skills, and why they've become just as valued as vocational skills in today's work environment.
Well, for employees in the BFSI sector specifically, how crucial are social and behavioral skills, particularly in the context of a crisis, such as the pandemic we find ourselves in now?
I think these skills are much more non-negotiable in sectors like BFSI and anything to do with services. While on one hand, you have a rise of a very high-tech culture, I think in parallel, there's also a very high-touch culture that people are expecting. So you and I may not have gone to a bank in a long time, but when we have to call up a customer service person or a relationship manager, we expect a much higher level of service. And so adopting a very customer-centric approach, which of course is a very cliched theme, but today customer centricity has become much more about being empathetic, being able to listen well, being able to customize solutions well, being able to communicate in ways that not only can you calm down an irate customer, but you can also convince them and align them with a new value proposition that you may be offering in terms of selling something and upselling something. So again, the need for strong communication has been always there, but it is even greater now in a very high touch environment. And of course, finally, you need to deal with a lot more collaboration and teamwork, given how everything has gone remote, particularly in the BFSI sector.
Pramath, thank you so much for sharing those critical takeaways. And with that, we present to you highlights of our industry webinar with a panel of seasoned BFSI professionals.
The BFSI sector will need to evolve itself basis the way other industries are evolving. And we also talked about a very powerful word of hyper-personalization of customers. I think that holds true for the talent base as well. So I think the key role each of us in HR that we would need to play is how do we hyper-personalize the agenda of catering to the needs of this varied consideration set of talent that is going to be available to us. It cannot be either or in my mind. It'll have to be an amalgamation of all. And I think the acid test for all of us would be how do we bring the best out of it? And that's where things like reskilling, upskilling, reverse mentoring, all of that will come into play.
Ultimately, financial services is a bridge between providers of capital in its broadest sense to users of capital. To me, the real holy grail of success in such a fast-moving environment is adaptability quotient that our employees need to have. The comfort with ambiguity, the excitement of meeting up a challenge and making it happen, not getting bogged down with failures, and to summarize, basically risk-taking ability.
The focus always has been on what aspect of employee output, right? And we from HR, we always used to talk, and there has to be a good balance between how and what. And I think, significant opportunity that, we are seeing, and the kind of talent that essentially would be sought by the industry, by the firm, are the ones who would not only, deliver the what aspect, but also the how aspect. Because organization, especially the BFSI, for us, we are, most of our businesses are regulated ones, right?
Sure.
Anything, happens amiss, our license, business, the whole revenue is at risk. So the way we handle risk is very, very different. And to that extent, I think, the how aspect has become very, very critical for us.
Innovation is a mindset thing. It's about being able to take risks. It's about creating an environment where you can get the right people and in a safe environment where you can get the right people to try out things, because the nature of innovation is you will fail a couple of times and then kind of get it right somewhere. I don't know if it's about a lot of money. I think it's about kind of creating that ecosystem.
It's time for a short break, but our special feature, The Economic Times and Harappa Transformation Series, brought to you by ITes, continues on the other side. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching The Economic Times and Harappa Transformation Series, brought to you by ITes. And we're in conversation with Dr. Pramath Raj Sinha, who's shedding more light on the role Thrive skills play in shaping an employee's career graph.
So, sir, switching gears a bit, in an effort to become an Atmanirbhar Bharat, India has very high hopes of its manufacturing sector. But I'd love your take here. To what extent has the ability to reason and the ability to problem solve now permeated the manufacturing mindset?
I think it's the most exciting of all the stories, because manufacturing has always been a very traditional sector. Things happen in a certain way over a long period of time, and any change happens slowly. At least that's our impression. But I would say that some very fundamental changes are taking place in manufacturing, and the pandemic has accelerated some of that. You and I are all witnessing that. So one thing that has happened is that supply chains have been totally disrupted. And people have had to adapt very quickly to the pandemic, and that has completely changed the business model of manufacturing and supply chain. I think what has also interestingly happened is that with technology coming in, a lot of businesses have gone from being just B2B businesses to become B2C businesses, where they are going directly to the consumer. Earlier, they were going through an intermediary to sell something to us. Today, you can actually go and buy things directly from them. And finally, there is this new fangled idea of the Internet of Things, right? So every machine, every part of your process, every product has a little chip and a device embedded in it where you can track what's happening all the time. And that has led to tools of predictive analytics, predictive maintenance on the shop floor, and so on and so forth. So even in that very traditional environment, there's a lot of data and so on that is being created. So I'm just giving you this trend because this is what is leading to the need for greater reasoning, problem solving, thinking through things, structuring things. And again, the ability to solve problems has always been at the heart of manufacturing, because typically things are being run in a process, and whenever things go wrong, you have to step in. But as the business becomes more complicated and more, where the throughput has become very fast, crisis management, resilience, collaboration, quick decision making, alongside reasoning and problem solving have become very, very must-have skills.
Pramath, thank you for sharing those critical takeaways. And with that, we now present to you highlights of our industry webinar with manufacturing luminaries.
We all in our different sectors are trying to adopt a skill-based talent model. And there is a race to reskill talent. And this would be both, I think, the biggest opportunity for all of us and a challenge for our next decade, I would say. I think it will go for a decade. And companies, those who can, really upskill employees or talent with the speed and scale will outplace the competition.
The functional and behavioral trainings can't be looked differently and separately in an individual's journey. What we in turn do is try and merge the behavior part in the functional trainings. Okay, so if you are being trained on a particular technology on MES, on DCS, you will be also trained on data analysis, you will be also trained on decision making, you will be also trained on other aspects of your behavior that you are supposed to be displaying in your roles.
In all these training academies, you ensure that people are fully equipped to go out there and run that machine, which is working using a lot of the latest technology, but you can't afford any errors. Earlier, there was enough bandwidth from a time cost perspective to handle it. Today, it is not that way. So organizations, I think, work overtime to ensure that people are skilled completely before they get on to, working on a particular place. So I've seen simulators working, and that's a very, very good way to get people exposed.
Emergencies create the need for temporary solutions. Long-term disruptions create solutions that eventually become part of the regular practice. Now, that is what COVID has done to the entire world at this point of time. And especially manufacturing industry, which has been hit a lot by this entire COVID thing, is actually left picking up the pieces and learning what the new normal looks like. So I think these are, four major changes that I'm seeing in the manufacturing setup. The local manufacturing, use of cobots, robotics is going to come into picture a lot, increase in digitization, and this entire continuation of virtual world, which is going to come.
Well, sir, that brings us to the final leg in our series. And I'd love to better understand from you how the services sector can truly thrive by placing a greater emphasis on shaping its workforce-wide behavioral skills.
We again talked a bit about the service sector because BFSI is somewhat, and so is parts of IT. But I would like to re-emphasize the importance of customer centricity. I think a lot of problems in this industry, at least you and I have experienced that as consumers, really comes from poor listening skills. So being able to listen actively and empathetically, today this word empathy is used a lot in corporate contexts. This is not about showing caring or sympathy. It's really about getting into your customers' shoes and understanding what is it that they really need and what are their pain points, so that you can actually create that as an opportunity for your organization. I think the pandemic has also exacerbated the feelings of stress and difficulty and loneliness for many customers. And so they are looking for a much higher level of customer service than before. Conflict resolution has always been an issue in the service industry. Dealing with customers who have multiple problems, you always have to solve those patiently and without kind of losing your cool. So it helps to be a problem solver. Customers also appreciate promptness and a certain quality each time, so that the level of problem solving goes up even further. And of course, finally, what is generally happening all over is that organizations and workplaces are becoming more horizontal, flatter. People are moving around a lot. So employee resilience, this is another word that you must have heard a lot through the pandemic, is really going to not just be something that you need during situations of crisis like this, but you're going to need throughout. And I think that's another area where you're going to see service industries really trying to skill their employees in becoming more resilient, more agile as the business evolves. So those are some of the things that I think the service industries is looking to skill their people on.
Pramath, thank you once again for sharing those rich range of insights. And with that, we now bring you highlights of our industry webinar with business leaders who are setting new standards across the services space.
If you look at the skills in the services sector, because we are so customer centric, we're at the cusp of the action almost, right? And customer is at the core of everything that we are doing. I think the key skills that has really come up over the last 5, 6, 10 years, ability to listen is something that has come up really, really strongly. The other kind of skills that are coming up very strongly is empathy, and that will lead to better employee satisfaction, better customer satisfaction, driving brand loyalty and referrals and so on and so forth. The other fact that I have also seen specifically in these demanding times would be a skill like assertiveness. How people are kind of handling themselves, owning things, accountable for results and all of that. In spite of a challenging workplace scenario, that's also kind of seemingly has come up as a skill.
When we talk about skills, one of the things that comes to the top of my mind is resilience. In these changing circumstances, resilience is the core to build an organization where people are able to take on challenges and emerge out winners. Resilience is about self-awareness. It's about mindfulness. It's about the ability to derive from strong personal relationships.
As an organization, as we continue to our endeavor to future-proof colleagues and we help them be future ready, these are the 3 core areas. One is the cognitive skills. Second is human-centric skills, and third is about technology, right? How do we really enable our colleagues with emerging technology to help them be future ready?
One of the problems that we realized during the pandemic is one of the key ability to get things done in large corporations is your relationship with people. And it's a struggle to build relationship with people, with so many people around. And every time you get into a meeting, you find someone new and you're interacting with that person in the video. So that is something that we are struggling with, but emotional intelligence also helps in building relationship. It's a part of social skills, are very much a part of it.
The entire HR, if I have to talk about, the whole role was changed completely. We were more like counselors. We were more like support to the teams in terms of this crisis management, as how to maintain that behavioral pattern and people live in that positive mindset so that they communicate better and they come out of this issues, what they're facing?
Now, I think the first revolution that happened during this time is finally HR has got the seat it always deserved. And hats off to them for driving organizations across the world.
Well, that brings our special feature, the Economic Times and Harappa Transformation Series, brought to you by ETEdge, to a close. We trust that you found the insights shared of great value. Thanks for watching.